Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's listening lesson, which will focus on breakthroughs in space exploration. This is a very interesting topic, and I am sure that you will enjoy listening to and thinking about human achievements in this area. In this lesson, we will learn how to listen carefully and relate the information that we hear to specific questions. I hope you are ready to begin, students. Our lesson title today is Breakthroughs in Space Exploration, and we will be listening to a news report on this subject. Based on the title of the news report, can you predict what it is going to be about? What kinds of topics do you think will be covered? Students, if you look on page 289 of your textbook, you will see 4 photographs. Using these photographs and the title as clues, please write a list of topics and vocabulary words that you predict the news report will include.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed imagining a news report based on its title and these 4 photographs. The title, Breakthroughs in Space Exploration, suggests that the news report will cover the history of human activity in space. It will probably highlight the major achievements that humans have made over the decades since space exploration began. Possible vocabulary words include astronaut, space shuttle, satellite, launch, and planet. You may have selected other vocabulary words as well. Practicing our vocabulary is always useful because it helps us to understand what we hear. Good work, students. Before we listen to the news report, please look at page 290. Here you will see a chart that lists specific dates and spacecrafts. Please take a moment to copy this chart into your own notes. Go ahead, students.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Thank you. As you listen to the news report, write down the event that corresponds with each date and spacecraft listed in your chart. Are you ready to listen, students? Let us begin the news report. Perhaps the greatest human achievement in the 20th century was the beginning of space exploration. It began after the Second World War as a competition, the space race, between the USA and the Soviet Union or Russia. The Russians won the first two victories. They sent the first man-made craft into space with the successful launch of Sputnik in 1957, a radio satellite which spent 3 months orbiting the Earth. Then, in 1969, the Russians put the first man in space with the launch of Vostok, one manned by Yuri Gagarin. In 1969, the USA scored a great victory over the Russians when Neil Armstrong became the first man to walk on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission. The Russians, to this day, have not put a man on the moon. The Apollo moon missions continued until 1974. During the 1970s, the Americans also constructed a laboratory in space. Skylab was visited by 3 teams of astronauts who stayed in space for weeks at a time, doing experiments and, at the same time, testing the long-term effects of weightlessness. The Russians built their own space lab, Mir, in 1986, which did similar work and is noteworthy as it was the place where they worked together with the Americans, rather than in competition. It was replaced by the International Space Station, which is expected to remain in operation until 2015. This is truly international, with scientists from several different countries working there for long periods, months, even years at a time. In the mid-1970s, the Americans began to develop the Space Shuttle. This is a spacecraft with wings, which allow it to return to Earth. The shuttle carries 6 to 8 astronauts and has been built to carry scientists to and from the space labs. There have been other unmanned space flights to other planets in the solar system. For example, there have been several missions to Mars, our nearest neighbor. Pathfinder explored the surface in 1997, and Odyssey in 2004 brought back samples of rock which showed that many years ago the planet had the right conditions to support life. China became the 3rd country to put men in space with the Shenzhou program. In 2003, Yang Liwei orbited the Earth in Shenzhou 5. In 2005, Shenzhou 6 carried 2 men in space for 5 days. Then, in 2008, a Chinese astronaut walked in space during the Shenzhou 7 mission. Students, that is the end of the news report. I hope you found it interesting. Were you able to fill in your charts while you listened? Take a moment to finish your notes. Students, please find a partner to work with and compare your answers. You may begin.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Well done, students. I wonder if you and your partner shared the same answers. Let us discuss the answers now. The first event for Sputnik is listed for you in the textbook. The event for Vostok 1 is as follows. It carried the first man in space, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, and his historic flight meant the Russians won the race with the Americans to send a man into space. The next event for Apollo is the U.S. program of manned missions to the moon. Neil Armstrong was the first astronaut to step on the moon's surface. Then there is Skylab, which was the first space station. It was visited by 3 teams of astronauts for weeks at a time to test the effects of weightlessness on humans. The next one, Space Shuttle, was a winged spacecraft able to return to Earth by itself. The event for Mir is the following. A Russian space station which operated for 15 years, conducting experiments. Both Russian and American scientists worked on it. Both Pathfinder and Odyssey took photos of the surface of Mars and showed that Mars could support life. The second last one, the International Space Station, was constructed in 1998 and is manned by scientists from several different countries, including Russia and the USA. Finally, there is Shenzhou, which was a Chinese space program with Yang Liwei, the first Chinese astronaut. Were your answers similar, students? If so, well done. This is the end of our listening lesson. You learned to predict the contents of the news report from its title. You also practiced taking notes on information you heard. Next time, we will improve our speaking skills by discussing the importance of space exploration. Until then, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.